Hi, everybody. Welcome to this latest episode of Real Talk with Rick. In this episode, I have a conversation with Mark Weber, who is the Executive Director of the Eden Prairie Community Foundation. Mark talks about the work that the foundation has been doing in the community and his role as a director for the past 5+ years. Mark's well known in the Eden Prairie community since the late 70s because he was very active with the Eden Prairie News as a reporter and an editor and publisher. So Mark knows Eden Prairie well, and he knows the foundation obviously very well as his role as an executive director. So here's my conversation with Mark Weber. Mark, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming on.
Sure.
I appreciate it. So, Mark, you are the Executive Director of the Eden Prairie Community Foundation.
Yes.
That's awesome. Can you tell us what the Eden Prairie Community Foundation does?
Sure. Have you ever had a McDonald's Big Mac sandwich, Rick?
It's been a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend a steady diet of them, that's for sure. I liken Eden Prairie to a Big Mac because it has a lot of ingredients that make it great. So let's think about that for a minute. What are some of the ingredients that make Eden Prairie great? You've got this close proximity to downtown and the airport. You've got natural features like lakes and streams and a major river. You've got good planning. You've got great government, good leadership. I like to think that the foundation is the secret sauce. Okay, secret sauce. There are fewer than 800 community foundations across the country, and we have one of them. And we are focused on making Eden Prairie great. And what we do is we get people to give back to the community in a philanthropic way, channel people's generosity so that we're making grants and filling unmet needs and helping Eden Prairie get to that number one status. So, secret sauce, Rick. We're the secret sauce.
Mark, fair enough. I wish McDonald's was a sponsor of our podcast, but we don't have paid sponsors. But I do remember the Big Mac and the secret sauce. I'm more focused on maybe the regular hamburgers or the quarter pounders. But no, that's a great analogy. And you mentioned grants, and so a lot of times people think about a foundation is a grant giving.
It's a grant maker.
Grant making organization. So can you talk a little bit about some of the grants that you've given out in our community? Can you give us a few examples?
Sure. So since our start in 1981, the foundation has given out more than 500 grants to 100 different organizations serving people who live and work at Eden Prairie. And we have touched every corner of the community. It would be hard for me to name a cause that we haven't given grant money to. It's been a lot of nonprofits. It's been cities, schools, fire department, police department, all kinds of causes. And yes, the grant-making role is the common one among community foundations. It's really what we're known for. And then I should also say that it's not just direct grants from the foundation. So on top of this 500-plus grants over time have been grants from funds that are kept at the foundation. So generous people in the community can keep a charitable fund at the foundation, and they become grant makers giving to causes that they're passionate about.
Well, is that something that you're doing more of probably in the last?
It's really a new feature that we have only had probably for the last 5 years.
Okay.
And one that we'd like to expand. And, of course, you can get a donor-advised fund, and that's really what we're talking about is a donor-advised fund. You can get one of those through Fidelity or Schwab. But why you would do that through the community foundation is that the foundation can give you advice on what the needs are in your community. We know Eden Prairie, and if you're interested in giving back to the community, we can be your advisor.
That's great. I know that. And not, you talked about the number of foundations that exist in the country. So you think about even in this metropolitan area, you can't say that each and every suburb or city even has their own foundation. So there are a few out there, but it is an awesome thing to have in Eden Prairie that we have a foundation where there are causes in the city. And someone may think, well, I know that I might want to direct my giving to certain causes. I know I'm active in the United Way, in the American Cancer Society, but I don't know exactly what I want to give in Eden Prairie, the city that I live in or work in. So they can come to you. They can come to you and talk about ways that they can contribute.
So you don't need to be an expert on every need in Eden Prairie or the groups that are meeting the needs. You can work through the foundation, and we'll help you.
Good. That's awesome. And I guess I didn't ask too how long the foundation's been in existence. I think it's been around for a few decades now.
So 1981, just when Eden Prairie was starting its development boom, and a number of people in the community, and you would recognize their names because they helped start so many things: Rotary, Lions, Crime Prevention Fund. They started a community foundation with the notion that as Eden Prairie grew, local government wouldn't be able to fill all the needs. There would need to be this other effort to fill the gaps, so to speak, and that was really what the foundation was set up to do.
Could you maybe give a couple projects that you've been involved in, or that you're most proud of, that the foundation's been working on or has worked on?
So early in its history, the foundation helped support the construction of the Eden Prairie Veterans Memorial. And that's a project that a lot of people in the community are familiar with. In fact, if you go to Purgatory Creek Park, one of our beautiful parks, you can spot at least 3 foundation-related projects right there.
Okay.
The Veterans Memorial, the Gene Harris Gathering Bridge, which we were also a fiscal sponsor to, like the Veterans Memorial, and then the fountain that's out in the pond there. The foundation supplied the money for that fountain that operates in the water there just off the park.
That's awesome. Yeah, I know that you mentioned earlier, from the perspective of the different departments of the city, that whether it's police, fire, parks, our senior center, I think you've assisted as well, those needs that the city government wouldn't necessarily budget for or tax for, but are important amenities in the community. You've stepped up, but you've also been very involved with some of our nonprofits and our faith community as
That's
well, right?
Right. Yes, one of our roles is really to strengthen the nonprofit community in Eden Prairie and to collaborate with them. So I meet monthly with nonprofit leaders in Eden Prairie. We have our own little coffee klatch, and we communicate what each other is working on. We find ways to collaborate. We address particular issues that each of us is dealing with. So it's a safe place to talk about how to make our organizations better. And that's part of how we get things done in the nonprofit community here in Eden Prairie.
That's great. And so you and all those staff members back at the foundation office work on that, you and the multitude of staff people, right?
I'm the only staffer for the Eden Prairie Community Foundation. And in fact, the foundation has only had staff since about 2011, 2012, when they hired a part-time executive director, Laura Holcomb, who came with great experience. She had held a position with the Eau Claire Community Foundation. And then a couple years after that, the foundation board decided to take another leap and hire a full-time director to be the face of the organization. And that's when I came on board, 2013.
Great. And I'm obviously being tongue in cheek because I know that you're officed here out of the city center, and Laura, when she had worked here, was as well. So I know that we can find you here in your kind of one person office, and we're happy to have you here in the building.
And I'm thrilled to be here. I think it's another example of the kind of collaboration that can benefit the community.
One thing too I think about, Mark, is talk about maybe where you see kind of foundation work heading. Where do you see what are some of the things on the horizon? I think in a positive way, I think you mentioned the planned giving, or the idea that people can set up donor advised funds is something that you're working on. What do we see into the future? Maybe the future like tomorrow and beyond.
Sure. So internally for the foundation, we've spent the last 5, 6, 7 years putting the system in place for a professional community foundation. And now we're putting the finances in place so that the foundation is here for many years to come, long after I'm gone, long after you're gone. We hope the foundation is still operating. To do that, it really needs a strong financial base. And for most nonprofits, that means an endowment fund. And an endowment fund is a permanent fund where only the earnings are used. So the principal stays in place for perpetuity. And the foundation has never had a very large endowment fund. And quietly, we're going about building that fund so that most of my time, day to day, is not spent raising money for the operation of the foundation. That's being aided by the endowment fund, if it's big enough. But most of my day-to-day work is spent raising money for grants and filling unmet needs. So that's what a strong endowment fund can do for you, is take some of the worries about day-to-day operations off the board so that you can focus on your mission.
And so some of the larger foundations, regional foundations, the Bush Foundation or the Blandon Foundation or these other foundations, is that something that you take from those types of organizations, that they build they build an endowment?
Exactly. Yeah, we're on the small side of the foundation spectrum.
Sure.
Or we're one of the smallest ones around. We have about $1 million in assets, and there are foundations not far from us that have hundreds of millions of dollars in assets. And so, yes, building that strong foundation base is critical for us so that we can make a bigger impact in the community. So less worry about funding the operation and more focus on raising money for grants so we can grant larger amounts and meet more needs.
And the needs are not lessening. There's more and more needs as our community grows, and so that we know that's not going to go away, obviously. Maybe how do people find you? Are there people that just come forward and say, there's a way that I want to give? How can I connect with you? Is it some marketing that you've done? Is it word of mouth? How do people find you?
Building that awareness is a big thing. So the collaboration I do with other organizations is always very important. So for example, we collaborate with the city and school district on a State of the City Schools and Foundation program each year. Just a few months ago, we collaborated with some organizations to hold the first ever People Fest event at Starring Lake Park. So those kind of collaborations help spread the message about the foundation, and so do our own events. So we have 2 major events over the course of the year. One is an April event. We call it EP Gives. And it's a nice social event where we have food and socializing and dancing, and we honor our latest grantees. And then we have a program in September, usually the Saturday after Labor Day, Prairie Brew Fest, which is an outdoor craft beer sampling event about 20 craft beer breweries that provide samples to people. We have a band there. We have food trucks. We have games. It's become a very popular event, 600 plus people. And you get people attending who don't know what the foundation is and what the foundation does. And so that's a learning opportunity for us. That's how we help spread the message.
Yeah, and I think each one of those events at one time or another, I've been to those, and they do have different audiences. And I think you're right. The People Fest is something new that the city worked on this year, and Prairie Brew Fest is pretty young, whereas your EP Gives event has probably been around for 30 years, I'm guessing, in some form or other.
The EP Gives event is really the successor to what was the Foundation Ball.
There we go.
Which was the major fundraiser that the foundation did each year shortly after it started in 1981.
Sure. Are you seeing, like with Prairie Brew Fest or People Fest, are you coming in contact with people that might now be learning about the foundation, that maybe these new audiences, different audiences that had not been before? Are you starting to notice that a little bit?
Yeah, the Brewfest crowd, Rick, for example, is quite a bit younger than our EP Gives crowd. It's people in their 20s and 30s, and let's be honest, they're there for the beer.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
But you can very subtly, and in some cases not so subtly, impart the message to them through your materials, through your communications. So my job post Brewfest is to turn Brewfest attendees into regular donors.
Sure,
it's a challenge, but that's the charge that we have.
Good. No, I think there are a lot of events, and one that I noticed on your website, and maybe this is something new. It's not necessarily an event, it sounds like, for donors, but maybe to something with nonprofits, but a board boot camp. Is that something that's new? I had not heard.
New
I had not heard about that.
That we have planned for January 30th, and
Okay.
It gets back to that mission of trying to strengthen the nonprofit community here in Eden Prairie. So in my discussions each month with nonprofit executive directors, they say that building their organization and its governance skills is a big deal. They want their board members to have the very best knowledge, to know what their duties are. And that kind of training can be expensive. If you have formal training, there are organizations in the Twin Cities that provide that. But we're providing that here in Eden Prairie, close by, at about a third of the cost that they would pay elsewhere. And so we're hoping to gather 40, board members from the community, a modest start, but a good start nonetheless, and give them some professionally led instructions on how to be a better board member. And we think the nonprofits here will benefit from that.
I think absolutely. I mean, from a city perspective, we have a lot of commissions and committees and people involved, and sometimes people walk in not quite understanding, that there's some governance, involved in that work as well. And yeah, that's good. That sounds like it's going to be a good event.
Looking forward to it.
Good. One thing that makes me think about what you just said as well is if I remember correctly too, when you did your strategic plan, one thing that I think you and I have talked about at least too is the foundation possibly being a convener of conversations, a facilitator in the community. And I think that that's something that might have some potential as well, because you have these connections to these nonprofits, these groups, the city, the school, whatever the issue might be, there might be some potential to be involved in that as well, I'm thinking.
There's a ton of potential to do that. Our State of the City Schools and Foundation program, I think, is one where we can bring some valuable information to the general public. That's a free event that anyone can attend, and it's typically at the end of February, beginning of March. And we have done some other small forums. We conducted a forum that really focused on what it's like to be an immigrant in the suburbs. And we collaborated with PROP and some other organizations on that. We'd really like to do more of that. And, we can collaborate better, I think, with the city and schools on that. So what are the issues of the day? What should we be talking about as a community? I mean, you're putting together this fantastic long-range plan called Aspire that's really piecing together the vision of what our community can become. And I think the foundation can play a part in getting us there, and educating residents and making sure they're heard and making sure that they hear city and school officials too.
Right. No doubt there's a lot of big picture topics. We're aging, we're becoming more diverse, we're becoming fully developed, we're still, considered, a top-notch city in terms of our service delivery, but you always have to think ahead and understand that there will always be change, and there's always conversations that need to occur in the community. But absolutely, no, I look forward to that.
One of the best things we can do, I think, is share information. So if the foundation has a better understanding from city officials, school officials, and others what the needs really are, how are we aging? What are the issues that come with that?
Sure.
If the foundation is up on that, it can really drive our granting and the philanthropy that takes place in this community. So it's important for me and my board of directors to know what those issues are.
Sounds good. Well, I want to also hear a little bit about you personally as well. I mean, I think you gave an excellent overview of the foundation and the work that you do in your role as executive director, what the foundation does and where it's headed. But you did. This isn't your first job. You had quite a career before this is kind of a second career, another career, Mark. So take us back. What did you do for quite a period of time before you became our director?
This is an encore career, I guess, for me. I came to Eden Prairie in 1979 as a cub reporter for the Eden Prairie News. I think it was just 5 years after the local newspaper had started. That really makes me sound old. Makes me sound like a covered wagon pioneer. At the time, Eden Prairie, I think, was only about 15,000 people. One stoplight in town.
Sure.
It was a different community, but it was a good community. And I like to think I've grown with the community. So I served as a reporter, editor, publisher. And when I left newspapering altogether in 2013, I had been serving as general manager of a newspaper group for almost 10 years. So served in almost every position in local community journalism, but really decided that if I had a number of work years left, and I do, I really wanted to do something different and make a difference. So I had dabbled with some nonprofit causes through my church and elsewhere, and decided it was just a good time to make a change. My kids were out of college and out on their own, and that gave me some options, and I made a change. And it just so happened that about the same time, the foundation was looking for a full-time executive director, and my knowledge of the community and the people in the community, I think, really helped open the door for me.
And I would think I was going to ask you when you're out meeting with all the different groups and the nonprofits and the Rotary clubs and the Lions Club and at all the different events, do you still get people thinking Mark Weber? I remember Mark Weber, the reporter, and Mark Weber, the newspaper
How are
connection.
things going at the newspaper?
Right. Oh, they still think you're there. Maybe
they still think I'm there. So a few do, not many. Many ask if I've retired yet. Are you retired now, or what are you doing? And I'm usually telling a history lesson or two. I find myself talking a lot about what Eden Prairie was like in the 80s and 90s. I mean, I would go to a city council meeting as a reporter, and there would be tens of millions of dollars worth of development on a single city council meeting agenda. And that was just amazing, the amount of development and how fast that was happening. I mean, the Eden Prairie was one of the fastest growing cities in Minnesota for actually quite a while. And everything bright, shiny, and new. It was really an exciting time. But you know what impressed me at that time was just how well planned Eden Prairie was. And I know I mentioned that earlier as being one of the ingredients of this great community that is a Big Mac. But that great planning and foresight really made a difference.
Yeah, I think we're lucky that people have been thinking forward even 30 years ago about what it would look like today, and that's we're trying to do that now as well. But you're right, a lot of our success today is the thinking at that time and planned development and how that looks. So you personally, Mark, just maybe so people can get to know you a little bit more, maybe share maybe, for instance, maybe what's something that most people haven't done but you've done? What would be something that would surprise someone that you've done?
So in this little hiatus I had between careers, I decided to jump out of an airplane, which in retrospect doesn't seem like the most sane thing. Now, admittedly, I was strapped to an instructor, so it was a tandem jump, but it was a rush nonetheless, and I highly recommend it. Have you done that, Rick?
Yeah, I haven't, and that's a tough one.
Should give it a try.
Okay. I'll think about it. I'll think about it. My next question, too, and this doesn't make me, jumping off an airplane doesn't make me think of this, but what would be, to you, what's the most relaxing situation you could imagine for you?
So I would label myself probably more of an introvert than an extrovert, which doesn't mean I'm shy. You can't spend 30 plus years in journalism interviewing people and writing and asking people to divulge their deepest, darkest secrets and still be totally shy.
Sure.
But I will tell you that for me, relaxing, my ideal picture of relaxing is sitting on the porch of a cabin on the North Shore, looking out at Lake Superior, and I'm reading a great book, and laying at my feet is my dog. That's where I want to be. That's relaxation to me.
I'll take that over jumping out of the airplane as well.
It's pretty good.
Let's say, Mark, you won the lottery. Let's say you won, I think the big Mega Millions drawing and the Powerball drawing recently, like, what was that, over $1 billion? You just won that, Mark. What's the first thing you would buy?
That's really hard to picture. Actually, my first step wouldn't be a buy. It would be a donation. And I've talked a little bit about how the foundation is trying to get to this point where it has a large endowment fund. And I would donate to the endowment fund of the foundation but I so believe that it's a game changer, that it's just an easy choice for me. Beyond that, it's really hard to know. Everybody says, "Oh, I'd quit my job in an instant," and I'm not sure that I would do that. I actually think I have the best job at Eden Prairie. I'm not kidding about that. To wake up every morning and think about, okay, what can I do today that would make my community better? That's a pretty good job.
That is impressive. But I'm sure, after you give that billion for the endowment, you've got probably another $500 million you'll have to somehow figure out what to do with. I can advise you on that.
Okay.
You can seek me out. I can advise you.
Yeah.
You talked about something that you've done that most people haven't done. What would you like to do? What have you been meaning to try that you haven't done yet, that you haven't gotten around to?
So I'm a casual runner with the emphasis on casual. And I really just started when I was turning 50. So my dad passed away at a pretty young age, 56. And I swore that I would keep myself in better health than he did. And so I started running. And I've done a lot of 5Ks, 10Ks, a half marathon, but I've never done a marathon.
The big one.
The time is slipping away here. So I'm not sure that I could still do one, but it's still the goal, one goal that I haven't achieved that always kind of makes me wonder if I should go for it.
You should. So I've run 8 marathons. I haven't run one in probably 5 years, but you could absolutely run one because I'm a testament to someone who in his 30s and early 40s was continually passed at mile 20 to 26 by people twice my age, just breezing right by me. So it's not a function of age. It's it's the commitment to saying that I have no problem being out running for anywhere from 3.5 to 5 hours straight, and just to keep doing it. You can do that. That's
good to know.
Yeah.
On the half marathon, I was pretty much walking towards the end, so that was my finest moment.
You do the full marathon. You qualify for Boston. I'll jump out of a plane.
Okay.
Okay. Mark? What are you looking forward to for yourself in the next 10 years? What do you see?
Well, personally, I'm looking forward to being a grandparent. I really
Awesome.
am. Yeah. I don't think it's coming anytime soon.
Oh, I thought the follow-up was going to be it's coming very soon.
No.
Is this kind of a shout-out to your children?
Well, I have one getting married next summer.
Okay.
My oldest will get married next summer.
Okay. Get a move on, or what?
But I have grandparent envy.
Okay.
So I hang around people who tell stories about their grandkids, and I think, yeah, that would be kind of fun. I would like that.
Absolutely. Maybe this follows along the line of being a grandparent, but if you could make one rule everybody had to follow, what rule would that be?
So let's think about this for a moment. Eden Prairie is a really generous community, but I think if I could have one rule that everybody followed, it would be to have everybody give back to the community in some way. So, Rick, I think the median household income in the world is something under $10,000 a year. And I think in Eden Prairie it's probably 10 times that. So that's a stark difference. And I think that tells me that even though we have this tremendous generosity in our community, that we can do more. We're very lucky to be in a community like this and have the resources that we have and live the lives that we live. And just giving back a little bit on the part of everybody. Think about how much better we could be if everyone just gave back in some way, even if it's just volunteering some time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think a lot of times you hear about people saying that they financially, they can't be as generous as they would like to be, and some people, but you can still give time if you have time. So and I know that there's opportunities to do that.
And we're trying to do that as a foundation. So the past couple of years, we've done this springtime volunteer fair where we bring in organizations in an open house style, and we get the community to come in and check out the volunteer opportunities. And I've been very impressed. People turn out. We had 250 people at the last one checking out these volunteer opportunities, and not just adults, but people with their young teenagers coming and saying, I'm looking for something for my youngster to do.
Sure.
So there is interest out there.
That's good to see. Well, I know that I just threw like 5 or 6 questions at you, and at least half of them you continued to bring back to your work with the foundation. So that shows your passion for your work, and it's much appreciated. So I don't know if you have any last words of wisdom that you want to share, Mark. We're all ears.
I just want people to know that there's philanthropy happening in their community every day. And it's not always on a large scale. It might be a couple of $1,000s. In fact, almost weekly, there's philanthropy going through the foundation on the order of $10,000. Just one example is that we have a charitable fund holder who lives in the Olympic Hills neighborhood. And also in their neighborhood is a group of youngsters that annually hold the 9/11 lemonade stand. So raising money and marking 9/11, and it's become a popular neighborhood event, raising money for charity. And our fund holder said this year we'd like to match whatever those youngsters raise and make sure it goes to a good cause. Well, as a result, a total of $9,000 went to an Eden Prairie nonprofit called Camp Gratitude, which provides camping experiences for military families. So, that's a little-known act of charity. And those are going on in our community every week. And the more that we can do that, the better community we're going to be.
Absolutely. So, and I appreciate you being the one to help kind of bring those stories forward, too.
Sure.
Well, Mark, thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
You.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
Yep.